on the NewsChannel 5 network. This is OpenLine.
Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm Carrie Sharp. If you have been watching the last hour here on NewsChannel 5, you have seen the governor's first State of the State address, and that is what we are talking about on OpenLine tonight. I have our political expert here with us, Pat Nolan.
Hi, Carrie.
I have upgraded you to expert instead of analyst.
I'm in trouble now.
You're a big deal, Pat. We are glad to have you along with us.
I'm glad to be here.
This is OpenLine, so we are taking your calls, your questions, your comments. If you have watched the speech, if you have seen the news about the speech, go ahead and chime in. We'd love to hear from you tonight. Pat, I just want to ask you big picture. Let's talk about this budget first. The governor said he went at this first budget that he's creating for the state as a conservative businessman, and that is his background. What are your thoughts on his budget?
Well, he did a lot of the things that he said he wanted to do on the campaign trail. Put more money into vocational and technical training, do more things to help in mental health and some other things, and he's putting the money behind it in this. It's interesting in this budget. The total budget is about $38 billion, but probably he's putting at least $100 million, if not $150 to $200 million in new funds into this to various different programs. But he's doing all that at the same time while he's putting more money than ever before in the rainy day fund. In fact, it's $1.1 billion if they approve the budget he submitted. That's the largest it's been as an overall number. This is the overall single largest one-year contribution, and it's the largest as a percentage of the budget. So on the one hand, well, Republicans might say, well, wait a minute, $200 million more in spending. Gosh, that sounds really high. Democrats say it may not be high enough. But on the other hand, you've got a situation where he's saying, well, but we still have the rainy day funds protected. We're going to have plenty of money. So if you think the economy in Tennessee is doing well, it must be.
It sure is. Revenue is up, and Tennesseans should be happy about that overall. But as we peel away the layers of this and really dig into it, a lot of folks are going to say, where is that new money going to? That's the exciting part for some folks. Other folks will draw ire with that a little bit.
Well, it could be. I think most of the things he's talking about doing, interestingly, the people that you might think would not think it's a good idea, like the Democrats, the state leader of the Democrats in the Senate, here in Nashville, Jeff Yarborough, the minority leader, basically said that he likes the areas the governor is putting more money in. He'd like to maybe see more money put into it, but he probably is pretty happy with where it's going, so that probably won't have a lot of opposition to it. I'm sure there'll be some nitpicking going on some of it, but for example, he's talking about putting in money for a future workforce initiative. That's $4 million. He's talking about $25 million in what he's calling the GIFT Act, which is the governor's investment in vocational education. That's what he probably talked about most, because as a businessman, he realized how difficult it was to find the kind of trained people he needed in the home business that he was in, home services business, and he wanted to make sure that's being taken care of and people are ready to go into the workforce in the future. Maybe the biggest overall investment in this tonight is the $71 million
to teachers.
For 2.5% pay raise. Now, it wasn't clear to me whether that's also for state employees. I guess we'll have to ask about that or see what's actually in the budget. Usually those two things go together. They don't have to, but it'll be interesting to see if that's in the budget as well.
And I heard from the Teachers Education Association, we received a response from them. Obviously, they are happy about this pay raise, which, as you said, amounts to about 2.5%. But they're not happy about everything that he's proposed, namely the charter school, the monies that will go to that is what he's proposing,
he wants to
and
double
also the education savings accounts.
He wants to double the amount of money put into charter schools. Now, he didn't put the dollar number in there for what it is now, but he wants to double that, and also he wants to, and there was some uncertainty about this because he's announced a lot of programs leading up to this over the roughly 6 weeks he's been in office, but he had not said for sure something he talked about a lot on the campaign trail, and that was these education savings accounts, what people call them also vouchers.
And he outlined that pretty clearly tonight.
And tonight he pretty much came down foursquare of I want to do it and I want to do it this year. Now, it sounded like what he's talking about is still going to be limited in scope in terms of the people that are going to receive these vouchers have to attend underperforming schools. And that's not every school in the state, but that is a certain number of them. And a lot of them are going to be in Memphis and Nashville. So there's a concern, of course, from a lot of school boards that means money is going to come out of public education and they're going to have less money to do more with.
Sure. And the TEA brought up also that, especially these ESAs, that there's proven, they say, that there's a lot of room for fraud in this. And they said instead of putting the money there where there's been proven fraud, put it where it counts and going towards teachers. And if you were to take that money and put it towards those teacher raises, it would bring them in line with the cost of inflation.
Well, we'll see how that goes. At this point, certainly the Republicans have the the votes if it comes down to a party line vote to get this passed through the legislature. The Senate has passed a similar voucher type program in the last 2 times in the legislature. The House has never taken it up to the floor. So the key will be what happens in the House. There are a lot of school boards across the state, not just in urban areas, but in rural areas, who don't like this idea. They think it's going to take money away from them. The governor did try to soften the blow a little bit by saying, I'm going to put $25 million more in the overall school money going out to these schools that are underperforming, so that if the school boards lose that money from students transferring over, they'll be held harmless out of that. Now, he said that for 1 year, so that's just a 1-year thing. Is that going to be enough to get the other school boards to fall in line and say, yeah, that's a good idea? And kind of how will that work? I'll be interested to see what the private and independent schools say, because the governor said that they would allow these students at these underperforming schools to be able to come to these other schools and have a seat to attend there at no cost to their families. Well, I don't think the state's going to give the amount of money it's going to take the tuition at some of the private independent schools. So we'll see how that works, because I know the independent schools may not want to take them in, but they also don't want to appear heartless and not not participate in the program.
In your experience over the past many decades of watching how all of this plays out up on the Hill, how much change will happen to the governor's proposals? Well,
there'll be some changes. In fact, right before the budget passes, the governor will come in with the administration comes in with a list of changes at the last minute to add more money into this, take it over. It'll be tweaked. It's a massive document, so I don't think there'll be huge changes in it. But I think the biggest fight will probably be in the area right now of vouchers. I think that's the one he put tonight that's probably going to have the most initial pushback. The other programs probably will be okay. Again, I think the Republicans would be most concerned of it. Well, are we going to start spending so much money that then we're suddenly in trouble in the budget? And with the rainy day fund at the size it is, probably not, although there are those who say that Tennessee's budget is not recession proof. But we haven't had a recession to find out. And I will say this, up on the Hill, there are probably very few lawmakers up there who've ever been in office while there's been a recession, because we've had the most new people come in this time, and we've never the number of years that lawmakers serve is not as long as it used to be. People like Beth Harwell, who just left after being speaker, had been up on the Hill for 25 years. You don't see that. You see people come and spend 8 years, 12 years, usually max, and they're gone. And institutional knowledge, in terms of that institutional knowledge, that some people think that's really good, not having as much. Some people think that's really bad. And if we've never been through one of these tough times before,
that's a great point.
How are they going to handle that?
We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want to talk to you about all of his proposals when it comes to criminal justice reform. He spent a lot of time on that tonight, and it's probably something maybe a lot of folks aren't used to hearing about until recently. Also, it is OpenLine. We are open to hear your questions and comments tonight. The number is 615-737+. That is 7887, if I read that, or 7587. We are coming right back. Stay with us.